Hey, the show is starting. You're one of the lucky two that's watching this. So giddy up, because Fullerton College's premier late night talk show, Last Call, is going to take you on a wild ride. Let's get tipsy.
Cheers, guys. I'm your host, Remy, and welcome to Last Call. We're the show that talks through the night until they cut us off. And I'm lucky to be joined tonight by Desiree Nguyen, an alumni graduate of UCI class of 2017. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. She's a theater artist who's been a part of over 30 theatrical productions. She's an avid puppet maker and an advocate for diversity on stage. How are you doing tonight, Desiree?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Absolutely, I'm doing great. I had a great bagel today. So Desiree, would you consider theater to be your calling?
Yeah, I feel like theater is one of the ways that I can better people and better myself in this world. It's not the only way that, I find fulfillment, but definitely my favorite way.
Absolutely. And how long have you been doing theater? Do you remember your first production?
Yeah, I've always had a knack for it since I was a kid, and my first role was in 4th grade. I played a little frog in this musical called Once Upon a Lily Pad. It's about a frog who cannot jump.
Well, that's really interesting. That must be really different from what you do now. What's your most recent show?
So my upcoming show is called A Return to Christmas. It's this short play that's part of the Holiday Voices Festival at Stage Door Rep.
Oh, that's interesting. So, you've obviously totaled many, many hours doing tech or doing stuff on stage. What would you say is your favorite part of it all?
I feel like my favorite part is I get to really live, different human experiences, even though they're all under imaginary circumstances. And
Absolutely.
The thrill of that all, I get to fall in love every night and cry and scream and all these things just in 2 hours.
Well, that's really interesting. So when you're up there doing all these characters, what would you say is your favorite character? Because a lot of people don't like to say their favorite because, we don't want to be biased. But do you have a favorite?
A favorite, a favorite acting role that I did?
Or production, anything comes to mind.
Okay. I think that I don't necessarily have a favorite acting role, but I think that my favorite directing role was I directed the show called In the Tank. Mm-hmm. It's about 2 lobsters who find themselves in a restaurant about to be eaten. And then they have this back and forth debate on philosophies in life.
That makes me think about Mr. Creosote. Have you seen Monty Python?
No, not yet.
It's a good time.
It's on my list.
So in future productions, how do you plan for those? Do you plan a year ahead, or do you just go to an audition at the drop of the hat?
So when it comes to directing, if I'm invited to direct, then normally they'll already have a show for me, and I just implement my own vision to that.
Sure.
Right, but if it's an original show, then that's just me starting from scratch, and that could take months to pre-produce, before I actually, start seeing other people for it.
And so when you do your productions and you are directing, do you start from scratch, or do you take other people's work, or how do you prefer to do that?
It sort of depends. I think that as of right now, I'm really into fairy tales and mythologies. Uh-huh. So then I like taking pre-existing, familiar works, adapting them and making them to something new and fresh.
Absolutely. Well, what's the kind of typical pre-production plan that you have to put in to implement for that?
So then we start with the script first.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
We start with the script, then we find producers, someone who will fund the project, right? And that's when we get the talent of the designers and all the people backstage. And after that, we move towards finding actors, and then that whole kind of just comes all together.
Well, seeing as you've been both behind and on stage, what kind of advice do you think you could give aspiring actors or production artists?
Right. So I think that one of the most important things about being an artist is to be a really curious person,
Sure.
Not curious just in arts and theater, but curious in history, science, mathematics, because if we're going to play a wide range of characters in human history, we need to know a lot about how they lived and all that.
Of course, absolutely. So when you see a character and you really want to put something on, what makes you really want to put that character on? What makes you want to bring that to life?
I think it's about their motivations.
Motivations.
Right.
Well, I'm actually really excited to hear about that, but we got to take a break.
Okay.
No problem. Alrighty guys, I'm Remy, welcome back from the break. So we were just talking to Desiree about the motivation that really comes with being in a production staff, and we've talked about your overwhelming influence with diversity on stage. So with the overwhelming positive responses we've gotten with Crazy Rich Asians, Searching, and For All the Boys I've Loved Before, how much do you think representation matters? Like, how nice is it to see your people represented up on that media platform?
Right. The thing about representation is that sometimes if you've gone without it for so long, when you finally get it, you just feel like, oh, I never knew that was so important to me. I didn't know.
It's gratifying. Yeah.
Right. I didn't know that I could feel so seen.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's really interesting because as a woman, you're also getting kind of double representation. And would you say that people should get more representation in movies or on stage or just all across the board?
Yeah, definitely all across the board. And I think that definitely one of the ways to do that is to, find new material or not be afraid to take on old material and cast them non-traditionally.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, growing up as an Asian American and as a woman, would you say that there was a certain movie that really helped you represent how you felt about your representation and the diversity in this field?
Yeah, so back in 1997, there was this movie. It was the Cinderella musical from Rodgers and Hammerstein, and that was with Brandy and Whitney Houston.
Really?
Yes, and Brandy was playing Cinderella. I saw that when I on TV for a couple of seconds, and I thought to myself, wow, I didn't know that Cinderella could be black.
Right.
Right, and the prince was Asian and his parents were black and white. It's just really a fun mix, but it didn't really take away from the show at all, I thought.
Absolutely. I mean, we know in America, just flat base, that typecasting is a really big issue, and it can actually hurt a lot of the demographics and a lot of our community members. How would you say that as a director, you use that to impact your directing skills?
Well, for typecasting, I think the important thing is that we need to tell deeper stories with that. Stereotypes come from a certain kind of truth, but with typecasting, those truths are not explored enough.
Sure.
So then when it comes to typecasting, I think it's digging deeper into those stories, into the histories behind those stereotypes. And if we're, trying to fight against typecasting, there's also, finding new material, finding bold characters that we want to put on.
And so as a director, what would you say the most rewarding part in doing all of those things is for you?
Well, I would say that I really find a lot of gratification finding a lot of talent.
Sure,
a lot of people
yeah.
Arguably way more talented than me, bringing them together, and making this incredible thing that no one could make individually on their own.
Absolutely. So what would you say your biggest inspiration throughout the years was? Because obviously you've done many, many productions and you've done some directing stuff as well. What would you say your biggest hurrah, your biggest inspiration for you was?
I would say that Margaret Cho.
Margaret Cho?
Yeah, really? Asian American female comedian. She is definitely very feminist, pro-LGBT. She was definitely the stereotype breaker back in her day, and I think that every single Asian American comedian has to owe a kind of thanks to her, the way Jackie Chan was for martial arts movies.
Well, I mean, I've only recently seen more comedians and more women actually out on that platform, and I've seen Ali Wong and I've seen Margaret Cho, and it's been really interesting seeing not only just more women, but a diverse amount of women up there on the stages.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Ali Wong is definitely a kind of spiritual successor to Margaret Cho, and it's just really great to see more and more different kinds of faces and bodies on stage.
I really hope that in the future we really start to see a shift where women are up there all the time and are really setting role models for our children.
Yeah, for sure,
So I hope you're one of them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was The Last Call, guys. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. felt so. I felt so.
Yay!